Welcome to Speak with Comfort Booth, the platform where we encourage women to find themselves, because if they find themselves, they find their voices and they'll be able to speak. Not just speak for themselves, but speak up for others. Today in the studio, I have two fantastic women. And I say fantastic because they have found their voices and they're ready to share their stories. They're ready to help other people. If we can't help other people, then what are we here for? And so our topic today, before I introduce them, is on intro, what do you call it? IVF. Yes, that's what we call it here. So the original English eludes some of us. They'll tell us about it. On my right is, and welcome, is Dorcas Ikia. She is an educationist and has been in the child education space for at least 16 years. Her passion for children is palpable. She's not just an educationist, she's my friend, my sister, and has been one of the driving forces behind what I am doing. She's your plug for anything children, books, even discipline. Because she's the kind that she sees my daughter and she doesn't greet, she's going to beat her for me. Dorcas, welcome.
Thank you.
On my left is Elizabeth Bellamy. She is an accountant and she has been in public health for the last 15 years. And she's here also to share her story. So I know her. Tell me one interesting thing about you. One.
Okay, so I used to be an athlete in school. I held the record for 100 meters and 200 meters for, I think, almost 3 years.
Oh, really?
In secondary school.
Okay.
And then after secondary school, I just lost everything.
You look voluptuous, so I'm not sure you are still on the track. So going straight into it. Now, first and foremost, your stories are around IVF, in-vitro fertilization. So my first question here is, IVF is a journey. Is there enough information out there about it? And I'll start with Dorcas.
No, I actually don't think there's a lot of information being shared about this topic, even in the hospitals. Well, maybe now with the new era of a lot of private hospitals coming up and specializing in this, then there's a bit of education. But at least maybe like 14 years ago, I don't know what it was like before that, where you were at the mercy of maybe the government hospitals, there was literally no education. You had to educate yourself. They would just tell you, oh, go and do this procedure. And I remember the first time they told me to go and do one procedure, and I was asking the doctor, what is the procedure? She said, when you get to the lab, they will explain to you. And I asked the nurse, I was like, what is this procedure? She's like, it's just a little procedure. It's not painful, whatever. Then I went online and I studied what this procedure was. And I'm like, these people are sending me in for a surgery that I'm going to be awake for, and nobody is telling me anything about it. So I don't think the education is there, because even outside the medical sector, like just general information that could be shared with women who may be interested in the process, the information isn't available.
What would the education look like to you? Because we just said education, but what would that be practical terms?
So I think it will be everyone understanding what that journey really is. I think everybody just thinks, oh, you get to the hospital, they take your eggs and then they fertilize it and they transfer it back and it's a success, bam, you have a child. That's what everybody sees. Like Dorcas said, even with the hospitals, it's almost that story. You go there and you expect that you will come back with a child. Very rarely are you prepared for all the other things that go along with it.
Okay, like what? That's
psychological stress, the mental stress. Some of us are injecting ourselves for the first time, on your tummy by yourself. I didn't do that.
Okay.
I went to the hospital every day because I couldn't bring myself to do it. And I couldn't get someone who could do it. So and you have to take that injection like every day at the same time. So I had to drive myself every day to the hospital. Nothing prepares you for that. The hormonal changes, the cost. Most times we just look at the cost and then you're like, oh, it's expensive, I'll save up for it. But it's all beyond the cost. So a lot of that information, how can your family support you what does support really mean? How can the men help you? People need to know before they go into it. It's not when you're going through the process that you're trying to get people to support you. And then our culture and tradition sort of makes it look like a taboo. Very rarely will someone sit down and say to you, I'm going through IVF.
And so this is why I will take this time now to thank the two of you for being courageous enough to talk. Because in our society, marriage and children are like some form of salvation. So there's so much pressure put on the woman, especially to have children, right? Now, you didn't make yourself. You come and yours is probably going to take longer. What are the top, what is it that women need to be aware of? What is the number one thing for you that women need to be aware of when they're taking the decision to use IVF?
Okay, for me, I would like to take it back to before you get married. You see this thing that they say, marry your friend. It's not a joke. You need to be in a relationship with someone who you connect with. Because the truth is that marriage brings so many things your way. And this is one of it. You know, personally for me, before I found myself in this situation, I always just imagined that, it was you get married, 1 month into marriage, you just get pregnant, you start to give birth to the children. But then I realized that it wasn't like that. Now, if you're not in a relationship with someone you connect with, trust me, that process is going to be horrible because you need that person's support.
Okay.
At that point, the truth is nobody else matters in the world.
So support from your spouse who has to be your friend.
Yes.
To be able to go along with you on the journey.
Yes. And I'll tell you why I say be your friend. From my experience, when you get to the hospital, you see very, very, I was like maybe 1 out of 10 that would go for every hospital appointment, and my husband would drop everything he's doing to go with me. You will go to the hospital and you could see 20 women seated alone. And I'm wondering, like, this thing already, emotionally, you are off. Like, it's gotten the best part of you. And then you have to drive yourself to the hospital. You have to come and go through some kind of procedure. Some of those women drive themselves and stay in the hospital till all the anesthesia wears off, and then they drive themselves back home. Or you hear them calling friends or someone, can you come and pick me up? And I'm wondering, where's the husband? This woman is not in this thing alone.
Honestly, thank you so much for that point. I'm happy you brought up the issue of relationships and the fact that the person should be your friend. Yes. Was this your experience?
Mine was different.
Okay.
I didn't get that support. Okay. So I got comments like, you're the only person I sleep with who doesn't get pregnant. I never thought I would have to spend money to have children. I will save up from January to December. So we're talking about starting IVF from about 2007. Yeah. Technical fees alone was about 400,000 at that time. And that's just the technical fees. So every other thing you got was an add-on. So let's say to start one process, you will need about minimum 1 million at that time. I would save up from January to December. And then in January, I would go and deposit that money at the hospital. And then it was a struggle even trying to get him to come for like a sperm analysis. I know before he actually agreed to come, he had done it like 2 or 3 times somewhere else. And like Doka said, I was at the hospital alone most of the time. I remember the day of the HSG. That's one of the HSG.
HSG. Yeah.
Anytime you see any woman that tells you she's gone through HSG, yes. Just give her a pat on the back.
Okay.
Yes, okay. Just give her a pat on the back.
In simple terms, yes. It's supposed to be an X-ray of your womb.
Okay.
But you're going to be awake.
Oh, yes.
While they do it.
No painkiller.
No painkiller.
No. And when they put in that instrument in, so you open up your legs and they put the instrument in, when they're done, they don't pull it out. They wait to print and see that it's clear before they pull it out. And so when they do the X-ray and there's a blockage of your tubes or something, they pass a dye through it. And that's really painful.
It's the most excruciating pain I have ever gone through. Like, I felt the pain in the middle of my head.
And you say some women are there going through that alone.
Yes.
I went there alone. It was at Garki Hospital. And I remember coming out, it was after the procedure that they gave me a painkiller, which was going to make me sleep. And so immediately they told me that I had to call a colleague at the office, and I asked him to come pick me up and drop me off at home.
So a support system, irrespective, is required, because at least that was it. Did your colleague know you were going in for something like that, or you just said
No, I just said I'm at the hospital, they're giving me medication right now and I have to go home.
So coping mechanisms in this, would you advise women then, if the men are not on board with them, how, or rather, how does a woman navigate it where pressure is put on her because she's the one going to birth the child, but the man is not being supportive, she knows it, but then there's this pressure? Is there any advice you can give her for her to meet, this whole thing midpoint?
Honestly, no. Because
there's something that only your spouse can do for you.
yes.
So how did you, so she is in a good position. She's in a good place. She's in a good place here. She's going on her own. You are in a challenging place. How have you navigated them? So I think that's where your advice would come from.
2 people in my life.
Okay.
One childhood friend who's a doctor
Okay.
and who understands the process, and I could have this conversation with. At that time, it was a conversation I could have with just anybody. You don't just tell anybody, I'm doing IVF. There's that, you must have done something terrible, in your past. That's why you can't have children. Mine wasn't the case.
Even if it was the case.
But everybody just has that assumption, you must have done something. Nobody ever assumes that it might be the man's problem.
Yeah.
Everybody just thinks it's the woman's
So
problem.
patriarchy is an issue still in this.
Still in this issue, and you have to deal with it.
With a high level of acceptance of IVF, why do you think it's still looked at one kind?
I think everybody just wants that, oh, I did it naturally. The truth is that when you look at it, I just feel that we live in a world where you are on your own race, but people just think it's a competition.
Okay.
Yeah, because you could hear comments like, me, I just tried once naturally, and I have, after that, we have how many children? So it's almost as if it's being flaunted in your face, like there's some kind of medal to get pregnant naturally. And I'm like, okay. I had this conversation with someone and she's like, how do you talk about this effortlessly? I said, because there's nothing to run away from. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's your reality. So what exactly am I supposed to be ashamed of?
And God is inside.
Yes, that's what I keep saying. And I tell people that people who feel this thing is all about a medal, they're in some kind of competition that nobody sees, only them. They're in that race. Okay, so you have your medal. Yay. Okay, great.
So why the advocacy for you? Because you are being upfront about the fact that you didn't have the support. I mean, you're married, right? You didn't have the support. You're still in the process. So why are you talking? Why the advocacy?
We need to talk about it.
Fantastic.
And I'm going to take it from the point of view of being someone from the north. There are lots of things that we're not supposed to talk about. The first time I saw a call northern woman at the hospital, I was in shock because I could see how uncomfortable she was. She didn't even want to she didn't want to raise her head up. But we all knew why we were there because we all know it's a fertility clinic, and I could see her struggle. But when we talk about it, when we let people know that it's okay, it's not everybody who's going to have a baby naturally. Some of us need help.
Exactly.
And we're not ashamed to say we need help. Like you said earlier, you were born like that.
Exactly.
I have PCOS, so I don't ovulate normally the way everybody ovulates. Polycystic ovary syndrome.
Thank you.
So I don't ovulate normally the way everybody ovulates. I need help. I needed assistance. I didn't do that to myself. I was born with enlarged ovaries. God didn't make a mistake.
No, we didn't. No.
And He had already prepared us for this path. So we need to talk about it. A man has low sperm count.
Talk about it. Go and look for how they can boost the thing
There's
to know.
nothing wrong with talking about it. It might not be easy for him to get his wife pregnant naturally, they might need some assistance. It's okay to seek for assistance.
And I think part of the issue of the stigma is because of how much the assistance costs. Because you're telling me that, you had to save $1 million, that's just the start. And so I think that also needs to be looked into. Because it's what heightens the fact that, it makes it look as if fertility is a death sentence, or infertility rather.
It's a death sentence. Because I remember one year when I went through the process, we had a lot of back and forth. And once something goes wrong, you start the circle all over again. Once something goes wrong, you start all over again. You go back to injecting yourself, everything. And I remember that day we went to the accountant to pay, and he was like, please just hold on. I need to get them to give you a discount. Like he felt overwhelmed for us. Like, you people keep coming back to this point. You keep coming back to this point. And anything can happen. And really, just like she said, it's just the way God has created you. Because when you go through all these tests and all that, and they tell you what is wrong with you, then you now see, oh, okay, it's an internal thing. This is how God created me. So it's not a problem you created for yourself.
So we have to start the hashtag, say no to stigmatization of infertility or fertility issues. Yes, I agree. Yes, and I love the fact that you're comfortable, saying it. I have this issue. It's just like short people. You wear high heel. That's how you help the height.
Yeah.
Yes. And then exactly. Tall people can't do anything about it. Can't walk barefoot. But you know what I'm saying. So, how can men be more supportive?
Presence.
How can they be more supportive? You are dealing with men here who pretend as if they are all fertile. That's the first issue. So I'm talking about that type of man.
Oh.
How?
I think the first time you ever tell a man, and if we ask people, even in the studio, the men to say, go and do a sperm analysis, I'm sure half of them will say no.
Not it.
Because they all believe that they're viral. The fact that you are able to get to the point of ejaculation doesn't mean that the sperm can make a woman pregnant. But for men, ego. That's a slap on their ego. You rarely see a man who will stand up and say, I have low sperm count, or the issue is with me. You always find the woman trying to protect the man, even when it's his problem.
So now, I think there are a couple of areas that I've picked up here. Number one, the mental health component. That's what I've picked up from here. That this also, the issue of in vitro fertilization has a component of mental health. Yes. Because you that was the first thing you brought out. Number two, there has to be regulation in the industry, because it has become an industry. As you said, you made a point. You said with the proliferation of private hospitals, more people came into it.
Yes.
But are they qualified? Are they quacks? That's where Nigeria Medical and Dental Association also comes in, because we need to have a registry of people to know, are you qualified? If you have been punished by...
Well, right now, being qualified, a lot of them are.
Are they GP, general practitioners, or are they gynecologists?
No, they're specialists, yes. A lot of them are specialists.
We need to have them because there are quacks. There's like robbing people of their monies and
There's
all
always that. Even with the specialists, you don't want to believe all of social media, stories, but I've seen people that I know, that I trust, that I would recommend to people, and I hear some of the feedback from other people's experience, and I'm sort of shocked
as to what they went through.
As to what they went through at that hospital. And I had to call one of the people, because he's a personal friend, and say, I'm reading this on social media. I know you. I know what you can do. What's going on? You need to get ahead of this if it's not true. It depends on so even with the specialist, people have to be involved. And the one thing that I sort of felt was a problem was people are into it, maybe not all, some of them are into it for profit.
Yes, no.
And once profit becomes the main goal, you can get into procedures that you shouldn't even be getting into.
Yes, it's
and that's why I said there has to be regulation.
So yes, that's where regulation
comes. Advocacy for regulation.
If there's someone reviewing people's files and saying, what they've gone through, did they really need to take this test? We were talking about it before the show, and someone was saying, do we still do this test in Nigeria? Why are we,
And don't you think, I think for me, in closing, before I take your last comments on this, shouldn't it be a requirement between couples? hello, go and check, so that we even know the strength of the relationship between us. Because if we're told to go and check for genotype, genotype, the HIV is even the number one. Then on the day of the wedding, the pastor will say, bring your urine, let's go and check for pregnancy. But we leave the important things like this that we should be discussing it. Look, are you sure you're going to be with me in the long haul? Because this is what the test has shown. I can't, you can't, or we can't, and all that. And instead of focusing on the lost and knacking part of the relationship, let's focus. So what are your last words, Dorcas?
I think society needs to come to terms with the fact that these things happen, and it's a reality. But there needs to be that support from our spiritual bodies, from people. I'll give you an instance. I went somewhere to some event, and it was an event filled with women, and they asked me to talk about it, and I spoke about it. And what I realized was, at the point where I broke down, it was the women in the older generation who were more emotional and got up from their seats to come and sound. But the women in our generation were just everyone sitting down. And that's why when sometimes my friends say, I hear people say, oh, but you didn't tell me you were going through this. And I'm not telling you because you're not going to support me. So why should I tell you? We need to be more supportive. We need to take out that self-righteous attitude and
I can do it.
And just be more supportive.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
I agree with being more supportive. Drop those questions. When are you getting pregnant? When are you having your baby? All of that. When I see women who have been married for a few years and there are no babies, I approach them differently. I ask them if they're trying.
Okay.
And then I try to share my own story.
Okay.
And you find out that a lot of them start opening up. Oh, I didn't know you went through this. And I'm like, oh, I did. Okay. And what's the doctor saying? What do you think? And then we walk through that journey together. I have quite a number of, people that I do that with. Stop those questions.
Fantastic. Support, stop those questions. Okay, now we're going to slow it down. So, you're an educationist at Tabitha Kids. So this is what is going to happen. I have a trivia for you. Now, best of 5 wins. So here it goes. Each question is 10 seconds. So here it goes. I'm about to start.
Okay.
Are you ready? Now, when you get it, tap the table. Then I know that it's your question, your answer.
Okay.
All right. So get ready.
Okay.
Number 1, mental math. 60 plus 10 minus 13 plus 2.
Eligious answer.
55.
No, wrong.
Eligious answer. There's no
wrong. It was 59. Number 2. What animal is not mentioned in the Bible?
Oh, wow.
What animal is not mentioned in the Bible?
Kangaroo?
Nope. It has hoofs now. It's made to mention. It has hoofs and whatever too. Okay. Cat. Nobody should vilify cats too. They are lovely creatures too. But it's not mentioned in the Bible. Go and check. Go to Deuteronomy and Leviticus. See them. Bible scholars. Number 3. What is currently the best-selling video game of all time?
Whoa.
You should know this now. What is the
Should we say video game as in the brand or the game itself?
The game itself.
Super Mario Brothers. Could that be the answer?
No. No, I don't have a winner today. No, you have 2 more questions. Minecraft.
Oh,
Minecraft.
And I've said this.
That's why I said you should know it. Minecraft. Number 4.
I never imagined.
Let me see who will not get this one. Number 4. How many states do we have in Nigeria? Yes?
Answer.
Yes?
36 plus 1.
Okay, what's the one?
Abuja.
FCT. Okay, one. We have one answer.
I like you to answer that one.
And last, this one, if you don't answer it. What is the largest ocean on Earth?
Answer. You know how these questions just come to you and then the answers are lost in your mind and you're like,
largest ocean. Your hand is in the air.
I've dropped the hand. Why did you embarrass us like this at the end of this? What's wrong with you?
Pacific Ocean. The Pacific.
That's why I said I'm like, what's that name? What's that name?
Well,
what's that
I won't even give you the gift. It's not out of 1
But
out
I
of
had
5.
1 out of
1 over
5.
5 is not. That's fail. Is that not fail, teacher?
0 over 5.
It's fail.
We both
so
failed.
I just want to say thank you so much for coming in to do this. our lovely educationist Tabitha at _kids.
No, Tabitha's kids. Just Tabitha's kids.
Tabitha's kids.
Yes.
On IG. What's your own on IG?
Eli Balami.
So you've heard them. So thank you so much, and God bless you, and I wish you the best on
you.
your journeys going forward. So this is all from us today. I'm Comfort Booth, and see you next time. Bye. Thank you.